So there's a very weird and odd report that's actually been going around recently that does suggest that James Wiseman is, of course, being traded. And that's not necessarily the weird and odd part of the report, more so that the Miami Heat are actually one of the teams that is interested in acquiring him, and this is all being reported by Kevin O'Connor. And I'm going to admit, as someone who had James Wiseman's back for so long on Golden State, I think it is time to kind of acknowledge that his value has really plummeted in the NBA. Like, it is not that great at all at the moment. I mean, if people are saying he's only worth a couple of seconds, you're just completely wrong. His value is not that low yet. I would still say he is a first round pick for sure. I mean, we can't put that much disrespect on the guy. He was a former number 2 overall pick. It's just that he hasn't played in so long. Like, I was one of those guys that said, look, just because he had a really, really bad first season doesn't mean you can call him a bust. For example, Darius Garland was a guy who pretty much jumped straight from high school to the NBA. He played in high school, did really well, was recruited to many different colleges, of course. Again, he ended up picking his college, played 5 games there before deciding to take season-ending surgery. Then, because he pretty much, it was only 5 games, there wasn't a whole lot in it, and it was so early in the start of the season, he pretty much just jumped straight from high school to the NBA draft. So, of course, he was going to have a really, really rough first year. But, of course, as we know, after his first year, some people called him the worst player in the NBA, and they were saying this about a 19-year-old that still legitimately averaged, 15 points per game or something, whatever he did in his first year. I don't think it was as much as 15, but again, his defense was possibly the worst in the NBA. He had a lot of inconsistencies about his game, but he definitely wasn't that bad. Then his second year, of course, he turned into a really solid player with a lot of upside, and even had, I think, 2K, basically putting him as the same overall as Colin Sexton when the new game came out. Then, of course, we know in his third season, he would become an all-star, the face of Cleveland, some might even say the face of Cleveland sports, and nearly led them to their first playoffs, since LeBron left. And I felt like that was what was going to happen with James Wiseman. His first year was going to be called a bust. Everyone was going to be talking about how bad he was, and it was pretty much going to be a similar situation where he kind of just jumped from high school to the NBA. But then we know his second season came around and he didn't have that fairy tale like Darius Garland did. In fact, he never played a game this season. And you might be like at home, well, that was because he was injured, all of this type of stuff, right? Well, yeah, he was injured for about, I would say, a third to half of the season. Then, the next half of the season, he played a lot of G League, trained with the G League team, did all that type of stuff, and the Warriors just flat out refused to play him. Look, I know he wasn't fully healthy at times, but you can't tell me he definitely wasn't fully healthy towards the end of the year. The Warriors knew what they had going on was so good that maybe putting in a James Wiseman would kind of hurt what they were doing at that time. So they just never played him. James Wiseman didn't play a single minute this season. And now that's left the question of a lot of people, asking, is he a bust? And just people flat out calling him a bust. I don't think he's a bust. I just think it was a bad pick by the Golden State Warriors. And I said this on draft night, that drafting James Wiseman would be a mistake because I didn't think he would fit into their system. So you're better off going off with LaMelo Ball, who would, again, be a future star for them. And of course, LaMelo Ball is already a star in the NBA and the face of the Charlotte Hornets, while James Wiseman is literally being chosen to not play. So, again, I think that James Wiseman could be good for the Golden State Warriors, but I don't think that James Wiseman wants to be the player that they want him to be. They literally took a player at pick 2, hoping he could do exactly what Kevon Looney's doing now, by setting 100 different screens a game, potentially getting a board, and just really doing that. That's all they want from their big man. But James Wiseman wants to be a scorer. He wants to prove himself doing other things, and I don't think he's going to get that on the Golden State Warriors. And I just think it's unfair for some people to be calling him a bust, considering I think it was flat out maybe a mistake by the Warriors, and he hasn't actually been giving a chance basically to do what the Warriors want him to do anyway. For like, the Warriors want him to be what maybe like a much better Andrew Bogut, a much better Kevon Looney, but they're not even giving him the opportunity to do so. And I mean, it's fair enough to them. They just won a championship. They didn't need to. Maybe they were right. He probably would have come in and maybe ruined it a little bit. But at the end of the day, the Warriors are still choosing not to play James Wiseman, and now he's up for trade. Now look, there is still a circumstance in this world where James Wiseman does turn it around for the Golden State Warriors, and I would really like to be proved wrong. In fact, if you guys have been following this channel for quite a while now, you would know that I've always, been a fan of James Wiseman. I just thought it was a weird pick by the Golden State Warriors and a little bit of a mistake. But if you do somehow convince him to play that Kevon Looney role and get him in the offseason, give him a big offseason where he's learning all the craft of, setting, I guess it's not really hard to learn how to set screens necessarily, but you know what, I might even take that back. What Kevon Looney does for the Warriors is pretty insane. That man sets like 100 screens per game, and he stays out of foul trouble with it, and he does it really efficiently. If James Wiseman learns how to do that, he will be exactly what Kevon Looney is right now, just I think a much better upside to score, and score big. Again, if he does all of that, of course he's got to get, be as good defensively as what Kevon Looney sometimes can be. I think he'll easily get that. Rebounding as well, he developed his rebounding and it's getting better, and I'm assuming it's going to be a lot better from his first season. It will be, again, another plus for the team. But then you've got, again, the scoring. I think, because when you see this as well, the Golden State Warriors, even though Kevon Looney does set a lot of screens for the Warriors players, he definitely does get in a fair bit of kind of like a pick and roll type of action where he will get open, but he never ever goes to score, and it sometimes does get pretty predictable because most of the time he kicks it out to a shooter or Draymond Green to set up a different play. It's pretty predictable. But if you were to have James Wiseman on here, one thing that James Wiseman has always, I think, been pretty decent at is he's actually got a low-key nice mid-range. And I think James Wiseman would be able to do well with that. And even though it's not necessarily what the Golden State Warriors specialize in, I just think you've got to let him do it. Because again, what would be the point of drafting him if you're not even going to let him do what he's actually good at? Again, let him shoot that mid-range, and let him actually go to work in the post at times. And I would really like to see that. It might honestly take some pressure off Klay Thompson and Steph Curry having to run constant laps around the three-point line. So for James Wiseman to actually not be a bust now on the Warriors, I think it's all up to them. I think it's up to them whether or not they actually give him a chance, and I think giving him 18 to 22 minutes per game next season is a not good enough chance. I don't think that's good enough at all. I think James Wiseman should be starting next year and should be playing, again, 27, maybe 26 and up per game. Anything less, you could say, yeah, that it's just, why was the point of even drafting him? But then anymore, you could also say, well, he's also got to somewhat earned it. So I think 26 is kind of the mid-range of saying, well, that's still a pretty good, pretty reasonable thing. So, again, when you do look at it though, at the end of the day, the Golden State Warriors could have had a LaMelo Ball who, right now, imagine LaMelo Ball on the Golden State Warriors. He would be like their sixth man. It would just be such a different story, but I'm still sure he'd be averaging probably 15 to 20 points per game, on a bunch of assists off that bench. I don't know if he would be starting. Geez, who knows? Or, you pretty much had that, or you got James Wiseman now, who's not even playing. So, yeah, I don't know. They literally passed up on a player who is now the face of a franchise for a dude that they don't want to play. It is very alarming, but I hope for Golden State's sake and for James Wiseman that something does work out. But honestly, I believe they might just explore a trade, which, again, if you watch my videos from a couple years ago, me saying this was a bad pick would just kind of prove me right. But I really want to be proved wrong. I really would like to see James Wiseman starting on the Warriors, and I think there's still room for him to actually do something there. I don't know. It's in the Warriors' court right now to see how that goes, and they've got to train him hard in this offseason. But of course, if you haven't already, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel, my IRL/long channel, and my podcast channel. All of them will be linked in the description down below. Comment your thoughts and opinions as well on James Wiseman. Is it fair to call him a bust or is it not? Of course, I would definitely like to know. But as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.